Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Fred Behrens. I'm the current Vice President of the New Brighton Historical Society. And I want to introduce my friend Joyce. Joyce Kloncz. I used to know her as Joyce Kloncz. Notwithstanding the fact that she looks very young, she's one of the original founders of the New Brighton Historical Society.
I'm glad he didn't say old.
No, and well, you were awfully young when you founded it, by the way.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
many years ago. So over 40, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, right.
I just know our 40-year lease ran out on
45.
our depot. What, 45 years ago? Yeah. So she's also the principal curator of our depot museum, which most of you have seen up at the Long Lake Regional Park. So I think you'll enjoy this show. I haven't seen them. You did this in 1991? When was the original?
Well, we did the play.
The play, yeah. So I haven't seen it yet, so I'm looking forward to it, Joyce. So let her rip.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to just introduce other board members here. Wayne Searles is our treasurer. Peg Joyce is a director. Ron Coda is a director. Our president, Jim Nebel, is not able to be here today because he is moving his mom back into an apartment from assisted living. You met Fred. Lori, Jim's wife, is also on the board there. And Mary Berg, who is the person who does all of our rhubarb, is already out of town for the winter. So I also want to introduce Josh Lemire and Rose Doherty. Will you stand, please? These are our two new docents that have been with us all summer helping us, and we so appreciate their help. And Jessica Bowers is another one who helps, but she was not able to be here today. So we thank you for this. So today's program is going to be based on, hey, take a look at this town.
Hey, take a look at this town. We're all moving up. We're not coming down. It's better than good. It's gonna be great. Better than Chicago, Omaha, Kansas City. Just you wait and see. Take a look at this town and the people too. There ain't a solitary thing in the whole wide world that people like us can do. We're on the move and coming through. Steadfast, strong and true. New Brighton. Take a look at you.
So these are the original words to the song that we wrote way back in 1987 when it was New Brighton's centennial of its platting. We did a play, Historical Society put it on. We had personnel from the History Theater in St. Paul doing improv. We wrote all the script, all the songs. We wrote that particular song as well. So here's that cast from the second year that we did this, and they were many, many New Brightonites that were in it, including two of them here. Raise your hand. They were back in this area here. I don't have my pointer right now. So, and here we're singing that opening song. And it was a story about New Brighton, and it was called Tales, Ties, and Tallow. Tales for story, ties for railroad, tallow for the stockyards. So I'm not going to play that again, but it's available on our website. Let's just talk a little bit about the highlights of the settlement of the New Brighton area. In 1847, Mounds View Township was surveyed by U.S. deputy surveyors while still a part of Wisconsin territory. Minnesota wasn't a territory until 1849. In 1849, Charles Perry settled on Lake Johanna and became the first settler in the township. 1858, the Mounds View Township elections are held on the same day that Minnesota becomes a state. 1887, the town was platted and the first buildings were erected. The stockyards had a lot to do with why we have a New Brighton today. 1888, the Stockyards Enterprise was formed, which brought railroad facilities, packing houses, the Exchange Building, a newspaper, and a flourishing town. 1891, the village was incorporated. 1900, sanitation problems at the stockyards forced its closing. 1982, the Sioux Line Railroad presented the Bower Junction Depot to us. 1990, the depot was moved to Long Lake Park. 1994, the New Brighton History Center, our depot, opened after 5 long years of renovation. And today, we celebrate 45 years as a historical society. So this 1847 plat map was drawn before the area lakes were even named, so we've written in the modern names of the lakes. Interestingly enough, Mounds View Township is very similar to the boundaries of the Mounds View School District this year. And they named it Mounds View Township because of this. By 1867, the lakes were named and land had been purchased, probably through the 1862 Homestead Act. Mounds View Township was established in 1858 when Minnesota became a state. Note that it was first called Mound View on this map from 1867. It was named after the 3 mounds in the area where the arsenal was located. And Charles Perret purchased 88 acres of land on Lake Johanna, and he's the first landowner in Mounds View Township. In 1858, when Minnesota became a state, townships were formed, including Mounds View, still is called Mound, White Bear, Rose, and New Canada in the northern part of Ramsey County. Charles Perret later anglicized to Perry, and his second wife Aurelia are shown here. Charles' parents, Abraham and Marianne, immigrated from France to Switzerland to Canada's Selkirk colony, and later took an ox cart wagon with their 3 children to Fort Snelling in Minnesota. A child was born in the ox cart on this trip. You can see the ox cart in the picture. Charles first settled on Lake Como, which he named for Lake Como in Italy. Charles grew potatoes on that land, and tiring of too many people living around him, eventually bought 88 acres on the shore of Lake Johanna in present-day Arden Hills. You can see the arrow pointing to his house. They believe that they have found where the household was. In the meantime, the area around what became New Brighton began to be settled. And here's a plat map from 1886. And you can see the homeowners' names that are listed there. It's hard to see, but it was growing. So the village of New Brighton then was home to many businesses from the 1890s on, including the stockyards and packing houses, the ice houses, a rolling mill, a brookyard, bowl yards, and retail establishments. This line drawing appeared in the Twin City Livestock Reporter, which was a daily newspaper printed at the Exchange Hotel. And these were the types of businesses in that time in the 1890s. You can see the names of various businesses, everything from stockyards to shoe repair to the Searles Block, Wayne, that's his family, boarding houses, hotels, and so on. The stockyards were completed in 1889, and they could accommodate 5,000 cattle, 10,000 hogs, 20,000 sheep, and 500 horses on its 90 acres. Many prominent Twin City investors were involved as directors and officers of the stockyards, including J.S. Pillsbury, W.H. Dunwoody, H.E. Fletcher, Thomas Lowry, W.D. Washburn, and many others. The stockyards industry was a $1 million operation at the turn of the century. Why in New Brighton? Because those entrepreneurs from Minneapolis wanted to stop the cattle from going all the way to the Chicago stockyards. So they invested this money in New Brighton to waylay that money going to Chicago. Here's a classic photo, shows mounted cattlemen posing in front of the opulent Exchange Hotel in the 1890s. Built to accommodate 150 guests, the hotel, first called the Cattleman's Hotel, was constructed at a cost of $30,000. The building also housed a dining room, bank, land company, railroad offices, stock commission offices, telegraph office, newspaper presses, barber shop, saloon, gaming rooms. When it closed, it eventually became a canning factory and finally Beiswinger's Hardware. That building was razed in October of 1988. During the Stockyards' heyday, there were 6 hotels in the New Brighton area. The Exchange Hotel, also called Kettleman's, the Long Lake House Hotel, also called the Divine Hotel, Transit House, Hdoba Hotel, Gunderson Hotel, and Brighton Beiswinger Hotel. Pictured below are the Long Lake House on the left, next to it the Transit House, and below it the Hdoba Hotel. We have no photos of the Gunderson or the Beiswinger Hotel. There were a lot of social clubs going on. This was something that went on at the Transit House in 1897. We have the little card that was given to people coming to a social event, and you can see there's a committee there, and rather elegant time. So undue influence by the railroad and sanitation problems forced the packing houses to close in 1901. After the packing industry left the New Brighton area, the pens were used for many years for feeding and watering livestock before they were shipped to Chicago, Illinois, or Sioux City, Iowa. The stockyards and their additional businesses provided jobs for many New Brighton area men. And the South St. Paul stockyards were already in progress at that time as well. Some of that may have gone to them. Here are other pictures of how sprawling the stockyards were. You can see the sheep farm on the lower right. And on the left below or at bottom is, you can see the back of the Exchange Hotel on that picture. Ice houses sprang up to provide refrigeration for the stockyards and for local businesses and residents. Ice harvesting was a huge business on Long Lake due to its pristine waters. In 1888, the People's Ice and Coal Company built a very large ice house covering 2/3 of an acre on the east side of Long Lake. Up to 8,000 carloads of ice were hauled down from this ice house each year. Loading facilities allowed 16 railway cars to be loaded at the same time as at the ice house. When the ice was 10 inches thick, the snow was removed with teams of horses pulling scrapers. The 20 by 32 blocks were cut with an ice plow and horsepower and then taken up the conveyor to the ice houses on Long Lake. This business was to continue until the 1950s when electric refrigeration deemed it obsolete. Well, after the stockyards' demise, the McGillis and Gibbs pole yards above began in 1917, providing work for many New Brighton residents. And on the right, that's Bell Lumber and Pole Yards, began in 1919, also hired many New Brighton men. Here's a picture of the workers. In a third pole yard, the Bruce Pole Yard, operated in the Irondale area for about a dozen years. We have no photos of that business. Here's Ray Winnicky at McGillis and Gibbs Pole Yards in 1925, and I just was with John Winnicky, the great-grandson of that family, and he said a few of his relatives died working at the pole yards because it was very dangerous work, and you could see that because of the size of the poles. Soon trucks replaced horses. This is a 135-foot western cedar pole, was photographed in 1979. Here's an aerial view of the McGillis and Gibbs pole yards on the south edge of New Brighton, probably from the 1920s. On the lower are the McGillis and Gibbs and maybe a little bit of Bell Lumber. You can see in the middle the New Brighton School going up on the left side of Old Highway 8, the Community Church, the St. John the Baptist Church on the right, and up the top of is the Town Hall up from New Brighton. And here's another aerial view, probably from the mid-1960s. This hangs in our depot, and it's about 10 feet by 10 feet. And it's so fun when people come in and they can kind of date it because they'll say, well, my dad's garage wasn't there then, so it must be type of stories we get. So this is a photo of the brickyard, which began about 1910. The Beltline Brick Company operated the plant on a 24 hours per day basis. And here are some brickyard employees in 1918. Its operations slowed up in post-World War II years as the plant became outmoded, and it was dismantled in 1961. And the brickyard was located east of the present-day Sunnyside School. James Treat was a local blacksmith with his place of business on Fifth Avenue, just north of the Village Hall. Treat is standing alongside his horse in the doorway in 1905, and his wife, Helga Gunderson Treat, is in the upstairs window where there were living quarters for the family. So as I said earlier, Gunderson was a hotel, and I have to think it was his wife's family that did that hotel. Another big business was the Harris Forge and Rolling Mill, which was located on the northeast corner of the intersection of County Road H and Long Lake Road. The mill opened in April 1891 and at full capacity had a crew of over 200 men who were turning out 130,000 pounds of iron each day. In October of that year, a fire destroyed the structure, with only the blackened smokestacks remaining. The facility was rebuilt and reopened in February 1892, but during the night of February 3rd, 1893, a second fire destroyed the complex. The fire, the panic of 1893, and the closing of the stockyards later in the decade were major blows to the local economy. Other early businesses included Charles Anderson's Barber Shop, located on Main Street, and this later became Coda's Beauty Shop. And the original First State Bank of New Brighton, shown in 1925, was sited on the east side of Fifth Avenue. Later, it moved across the street into a new building next to the Coast to Coast Hardware, and later still it moved west to the Brighton Village complex, and the Exchange Apartments now sit on this site. The Marston Block was a store on 10th Street and 5th Avenue on the southeast corner of New Brighton's Main Street intersection. This was a general store dealing in groceries, feed, hardware, boots and shoes, and menswear. Doesn't say anything about women's wear, does it? The building was actually a series of buildings fronting on Main Street, which included a saloon, a drugstore, and the village blacksmith. And the old town hall is at the end of the street with the Treat building in between. Here's a newspaper article, and I love this, two little boys saluting, and this was in the New Brighton Bulletin. But it's the same thing that shows, but the vintage cars were just lovely to look at, weren't they? Stores in the area included grocery stores. This 1924 photo shows Beiswinger and Johnson store in the former Transit Hotel building. Lawrence Johnson on the left, with his brother-in-law Adolph Beiswinger and their wives, Mabel Beiswinger Center and Rose Johnson Wright, ran the store. And the next photo shows Ed and Fred Beiswinger in the Beiswinger and Johnson grocery store in 1927. Later, the store moved across the street to the Treat building, where it was in business into the 1960s. There were two ice cream parlors in New Brighton in the early days. Frank Sommer's ice cream parlor is shown with Rosina Brichka behind the counter in 1925, and Helen Bona is pictured behind the candy counter above, and her husband Henry purchased the Candy Ice Cream Parlor in 1927 from Harry Hart. The establishment had pool tables in the back and later became a popular restaurant as well as confectionery store. And this was the interior of the City Cafe with Rosina and Julius Brichka. There was no date given, but probably the 1950s. And of course, there were saloons in early New Brighton. Here are two of them. The Lubieski Saloon, located at 5th Avenue, 10th Street, is shown in 1917. And the Divine Hotel Saloon is shown with Harvey Solomon Divine as bartender. Although the town hall in New Brighton was planned as early as 1891, it wasn't until 1898 that it was completed. It sat on 5th Avenue. It was used until the 1950s for a police station, government-built meetings, weddings, dances, social and club gatherings. And this is a postcard of the New Brighton Town Hall. How many of you remember that? And here's a historical photo of the week showing the New Brighton a town hall which dominated Main Street along the way, and it tells of what all of the businesses that were located in that area were about. The two earliest churches in New Brighton were the First Congregational Church of New Brighton and St. John the Baptist Catholic Church. Future churches were not established until 1958 when the New Brighton Christian Church purchased the former Congregational Church building. So that first church in New Brighton was incorporated 1890 and built at a cost of $1,500. It was located on the west side of Fifth Avenue and 6th Street, north of the former New Brighton School. Reverend Arthur Metcalf of Gettysburg, South Dakota was the first pastor. That church was raised in 2001. And St. John the Baptist was organized in 1902. The congregation first built a rectory and then a basement church in 1907 on Fifth Avenue. The superstructure for the church was built in 1922. This photo was taken in 1925. The parish, which became one of the largest in the state, eventually built a much larger sanctuary in 1952 in a school convent complex 3 blocks to the east on land donated by the Farrell family. The first schools in New Brighton were New Brighton School and Irondale School. The earliest schools in the New Brighton area were the Red School District 4, the White School District 15, New Brighton School District 18, Irondale School District 36, Lake Johanna District 20. Those schools housed students in grades 1 to 8 in the early years. New Brighton School District in 1910, photo below. The first schoolhouse was built in 1890 and located on Fifth Avenue and present-day County Road E2. That building eventually held the Setchell Carlson Electronics Company. And here are some vintage photos of that New Brighton Elementary School. Irondale School, District 36, was built in 1890 for the children of workers at the Harris Forge and Rolling Mill in North New Brighton. 60 homes were built in that area for the Rolling Mill families. The school building, located on the northwest corner of County Road H and Sunnyside Terrace, has long been razed, but the school served the community for 6 decades. Irondale High School was thus named after the original school and the rolling mill. Below is a photo of students from 1910. Before Mounds View High School was opened in 1954, students going on to high school would go to many different high schools: Columbia Heights, White Bear, Alexander Ramsey, Minneapolis Edison, Minneapolis Marshall, U High, Vocational High, St. Paul Central, and Murray High School. This was before consolidation, and parents were responsible for taking their kids after grade 8 to school, to one of these high schools. So when Ralph Ritter was hired to consolidate the district, that was the big spiel was, you no longer have to transport your kids, we will do that. Can you imagine how all that when it opened in 1954, all these kids coming from all these different high schools were amazing. So here's a unique picture. Another business in New Brighton were the dairy farms. So here's Ernie Swanson, pictured in a 1923 photo, delivering milk to families in northeast Minneapolis. So the Swansons cut their own ice at Long Lake to provide refrigeration. I love this photo. After the stockyards, ironworks, and brick family closed, New Brighton people found jobs at the Twin Cities Arsenal. And here's a bus going through downtown New Brighton carrying workers to cash their checks at the New Brighton State Bank. And after they left there, guess where they went? To the New Brighton Muni. We have done a story on the Arsenal because it impacted the area so much. So, and I'm not even going into that history today, but I believe we may have that on the website. So this is the mounds. These are the hills that gave the Mounds View Township and later school district, high school, and village their names. They're eroded from this scene because Twin City Gravel opened it up, and people thought that those mounds at first were Indian mounds, and they definitely were not. They were way too high. But this was a big business for the Indikowicz family, mining the sand and gravel from the mounds area. 750,000 tons of sand came out of that mound. There is no mound left. The Armistice storm of 1940 hit the New Brighton area hard. The city and many homes put up families who were stranded. This is in front of Schmalzbauer's food store. They're discussing, how's the weather? So here's the early years of our historical society. We were founded in 1980. We got the depot in 82. Here we're accepting keys from the Sioux Line Railroad. My sister and I are in this picture. Bob Prodger of Prodger House Movers moved the depot to city property, and it remained there until 1990 while we fundraised to move and renovate the depot. We wrote a grant to Celebrate Minnesota in 1990 and were awarded that grant for renovation. Many individuals, clubs, organizations, and businesses provided matching labor to satisfy that $25,000 grant. And I had to keep track of all of the volunteer time people were giving to satisfy it. So here's how it looked on the south end of town. Below that is it's taking its trip through the city to Long Lake Park. Top right, sitting on city property at 5th Street. And the depot would sit on these cribs before the basement was built. Part of that $25,000 was to excavate and build a basement. So depots did not have basements in 1887, but it's proved invaluable. Here's photos of renovation. Look how awful it looked. We had to remove all of the sideboards and have them milled off because they wouldn't allow us to have any lead paint going into the wildlife area around there. Rick's Roofing provided free labor to roof the depot. Many volunteers provided donated labor for this project. It was a huge project. Here they're working. The wife of the station master tried to make the kitchen area look attractive, and she hung or tacked this horrible wallpaper. When we took everything down, we had to fill thousands of nail tracks. That's my husband cleaning. You can see the difference between the dirt and the cleaned part. In order to paint, we had to use trisodium phosphate, hot water, and sponge mops. That's the original flooring on the right, original maple flooring. We sanded it, and Valspar Corporation provided all the paint for the interior, the exterior, and the flooring. And plus they provided a valuable service for us when we consulted with them. Williams Pipeline volunteered to build a rail siding for us, and what a job that was. They brought this equipment out and built this. When we're ready to bring the caboose out, Armstrong Rigging provided cranes to move the caboose to our track gratis. If we had not had all of this volunteer help, there would not be a New Brighton History Center. So what about that caboose? Well, in 1992, Valspar wrote to statewide cities wanting to donate their 1950 caboose, which was located near the Metrodome, was used as a break room for their employees. The city of New Brighton encouraged us to apply for it, so I wrote another grant, and we soon found out we were one of 3 finalists, one being the Mall of America. We were then notified that we received the caboose after we explained how we would use it. And I did kind of a cradle to the grave type of thing on how it could be used. Like Cub Scouts could have meetings there, seniors could have tea parties and whatever. They liked what we said. So just this year, our caboose was repainted thanks to labor provided by Headwaters Painting, paint provided by Sherwin-Williams, donations from the New Brighton Lions Club and the Great Northern Railway Historical Society, and painting done by Mike Alphaby. So you can see how it started out. They had to sand off all of the old logos. Then they put on silver or gray primer, and there's workers on the roof. Mike is starting the work. Lower left-hand side, that's Headwaters Painting and Sherwin-Williams came. That's how it looks today. Compare that middle picture, compare it to the top. And last Sunday, or 2 weeks ago Sunday, we had a little rededication of the caboose, and those are the people that were there. Excuse me. So, we had to also renovate the caboose inside because Valspar had stripped the interior and applied wood paneling to the walls. In the fall of 2014, we began the renovation. Paneling and wet insulation were removed. Interior walls were mitigated of mold. Car siding was installed on the walls and ceiling. New windows were built and constructed of bulletproof plexiglass donated by DeMars Signs. Flooring was repaired, sanded, and varnished. Caboose furnishings were constructed, and here are photos before, during, and after the renovation with completion in June of 2016. Again, many contributed to this project: the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway Foundation, the Great Northern Historical Society, New Brighton Lions, the Rotary, the Sportsman's Club, as well as many individuals. We consulted with the Lake Superior Railroad Museum in Duluth on appropriate paint colors and furnishings. None of this would have happened without Wayne Searles and Fred Behrens. They put so much time into it and did a beautiful job, because there's how it looks inside before painting. Now, it's kind of a garish minty green inside, but that was exactly what the railroads painted the inside. If you go into an old caboose, you'll see that it's all faded and grayish looking, but this was the original paint. And by the way, the railroads never put a lot of money into any of this. Not a lot of money into the depot, not a lot of money into their cabooses. They just did the stripped down version. So what else do we do? Well, for 25 years, we've had a Rhubarb Fest the first Sunday in June. Rhubarb is pulled from Dave Nathy's farm in Elk River, where the original rhubarb from the Lakeside Berry Farm at Long Lake Park originated, and which Nathy's donates to the society. This year, he donated 1,000 pounds of rhubarb. And here's our Rhubarb Fest. We sell bags of rhubarb, we sell plants of rhubarb, we sell rhubarb jam, we sell rhubarb cookbooks, and we have plates, sample plates available. It's always the first Sunday in June. Shortly after our deck surrounding the depot was built, we started selling engraved plank names. We now have engraved nearly 700 planks with the names of our donors. This project is a major fundraiser for us and helps to pay our utility bills, propane, insurance, and various other expenses. Top right is Jerry Bensing engraving, bottom right is Ron Cota engraving, and today Mary Berg is our engraver. They have to lay on their bellies in order to do this. It's not an easy job, but they certainly do a wonderful job. We have over 5,000 photos from 198 donors, the majority of which have been scanned or copied. We maintain a Facebook page, New Brighton Area Historical Society, where we shared approximately 2,000 photos of our area history. Our little free library, built by Scout Finn White from Troop 106 at Christ the King, as his Eagle Scout project, has become popular. The Little Free Library is a depot replica. Visitors can take and provide books for the library from their collections. We now have a geocache on the museum property. Geocache clues were located in the Little Free Library. A geocache is a container holding a number of items that have been hidden at a location whose coordinates have been posted on the internet. Geocaching is a very popular hobby right now. We also have some little surprises for children inside the Little Free Library. I just love being up there and watching the families come. I love the middle picture and the other picture, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? Getting kids involved. We also have a walking tour in Long Lake Park, marking the locations of the Lakeside Berry Farm, the stockyards, which were prominent in the 1890s. We have signage there that includes the ice house location, the railroad turntables, the engine house, the water tower, the pump house. The walking tour starts on the west side of the beach. Here is, I think it is the west side. Here's the walking tour brochure that we hand out to people when they come to the museum. What we try to do in the top picture is show that old picture of New Brighton, and below it a modern day picture of Long Lake Park, so that they can get their bearings. We also sell books. We've published 4 books since 1980, 3 hardcover and 1 softcover. We encourage you to purchase books. We have some samples here today for you. Stockyard Days was actually, we've been active since it started in 1981. The first 2 years, Stockyard Days was sponsored by the Society and the New Brighton JCs. We did it for 2 years, and we brought the train out, the steam train. Some of you may remember that. The third year, the City of New Brighton said we need to form an organization for Stockyard Days in which every civic group was invited to have people involved in it. And we have been working on it for 2 years, and when they came to us, we just went, yep, thank you, because it was getting way, way too big for us just to handle on our own. And now the New Brighton Lions completely run it, and they're doing a great job. And I love to see weddings at the caboose. Every once in a while on weekends, we'll come outside, and here's a wedding party. And the one on the far left is Mayor Carey's son's wedding a couple of years ago, but we loved to see them. We don't charge them anything for that. We just tell them we're going to put your picture on Facebook. Is that okay? You don't even have to identify yourself. When are we open? Well, we open weekends. We're closed right now, June through September, and we invite you to join us. And off-tour, our tours are also available for any clubs or any groups, or just let us know, and we'll meet you up there and take you on a tour. We have membership forms as well. We encourage you to join as a member. Very reasonable, $10 for single, $15 for a family. We would love to have you as part of it. We also have a virtual tour available on our website. If you go to newbrightonhistory.com, go to virtual tour, and you will be taken for a complete tour through the entire depot as well as the caboose. We're needing to update that, and that's in our future plans. So this is our History Center in the winter. It's pretty much kept pretty quiet during the winter time, but we thank you for allowing us to share our story, and we invite you to come and see us next summer. Questions, anybody? We got people here that can answer.
What really amazes me is Joyce has been one of the founders of the Historical Society, and all that renovation, she's been involved in every single part of it. The planning, the doing, the criticizing of it. Wow. Constructive criticizing.
I didn't pound the caboose walls. I didn't do that.
What Joyce has done is remarkable, just remarkable. And the work that they got in. I was talking to Fred. He was out of town at the time, and I wasn't a member of the society at the time. So we got out of the work. But Joyce and her husband Len, they were in the whole thing, and it's really something great. And I got to tell you, Joyce, we at one time we had over 20 or 200 people in here for a presentation. We had to take the wall out here, set up more tables, and sometimes it gets a little disheartening when you don't have a huge audience. But I have to tell you, I gave it one time with 6 people, and 3 were members of the society, the board of directors. So it comes out good. It comes out good. Thank you, Joyce, for all you do.
Thank you.